soy el fuego que...
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to your Realtor Sensei show. I am Sandra Jauregui Schlapitz, and today our guest is Daniel Itingen. Did I say
Very
it?
good. You did it great.
Great,
You did
great.
it great.
So, Daniel, welcome to the show. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your time. He's originally from New York, and Daniel has been practicing real estate as an agent and leader for over 16 years.
Yeah.
Daniel got his start late in the 2005s and had a hand in the rough $100 million in total transaction inside his first decade. I think I will let him tell us more about. First, I would like to know a little bit more who is Daniel in the personal life, and then a little bit about your story, please.
Well, Daniel, the personal life is a homebodied family guy. I recently had my first child with my wife about 6 months ago. So things have been really, really hectic in kind of the best possible way. I was that New York guy through and through for a really long time. I grew up in that area. I spent 35, 36 years in that city, and I've always said that New York will always be the place that I will always end up and live for the rest of my life. And before you know it, things beyond our control kind of shifted, and you have to make changes, and you make changes based on your family. And I moved to Florida along with my wife. My wife's originally from Fort Lauderdale, and we moved to Southwest Florida about 2 years ago. And it's been, this is obviously a monumental change, but it was one that is certainly for the best. So it's been great. Everything's been kind of crazy, but kind of crazy in the best possible way over the last couple of years. And I'm really glad to be able to talk to you here and do kind of a little what have you done in the business, which is going to be fun because I feel like I've done a little bit of everything, but yet I'm nowhere near kind of where I ultimately not hope to be, but know that I will be.
Great. Thank you very much to share that. And how did you get into real estate?
Complete accident. I was in my early 20s. I was maybe 21, 22, going on 15. I was pretty I would say emotionally mature, but I had no idea what to do with my life. I dabbled in possibly getting into the music business initially. And I actually have a degree in recording engineering, and I thought that was something that I was going to do for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, again, going back to not being able to control what we can't control, I was trying to find a job in the music industry during possibly the worst time to even try to look for that kind of job, where internet pirating was going on, and record stores all over the country were being closed, and record companies were being dissolved, and it was tough. And I spent year after year after year, during school, after school, interning in different places, trying to build up my resume and do it the right way. But music business was a place where it's more about who you know. And I had this weird epiphany one day where I was in my bedroom in my parents' house, spending most of my day looking for work, sending out my resume. And I kind of had I had a little bit of a flash forward where I saw myself sitting there in that moment 10 years down the road.
Oh.
And it scared the hell out of me, naturally. So I started thinking about, making changes. And I was young enough at that point, again, in my early 20s, where I had, my entire life in front of me, and I could pivot if I needed to pivot. And my initial plan, honestly, was to go to law school. That was what I was looking to do. And during this time, I went out to dinner with an old friend that I hadn't seen up to that point, maybe in a year or two. And the check comes. And he goes, I got it. He's the same age as I am, maybe a year older. He goes, I got it. And he takes out like a wad of cash. You have to understand how impressive this was for me, because in my mind, 22-year-olds don't make any money, very little money, never mind somebody that's taking out a wad of cash and is willing to pay the bill, So naturally I looked at him and started asking him a lot of questions, and he was doing real estate, you know? And while I was still quote unquote figuring things out and applying to schools and whatnot, I thought that doing real estate would be a good opportunity to, at that time, kill some time in a productive way. Very early on, I realized that it was a passion of mine. I was lucky enough to be able to sell my first home inside of my first 60 days.
Wow.
And it was to a very young couple that was, quite honestly, they seemed a lot older, but they weren't that much older than I was at the time. They were probably in their mid 20s. The first thing that really captivated me was just the art of the deal, negotiate, the back and forth, offer, counter offer. That really got me excited. But when I really learned that this was for me was after we put the deal together, after it was in contract, we came back for the inspection, and I was there physically. And I remember their entire family pulled up. And at one point, they just kind of stood in the front yard and they just kind of just gazed at the house like this. They were just staring at it, and they were kind of arm in arm with one another. And it was at that moment I felt like I was perhaps making a difference in someone's life. And that made me feel really good. And I decided that I was going to make real estate my full-time career, and I have not looked back.
Wow, that's amazing. And the moment that you really looked at, like you describe it, you change lives of people, and to see that, because for it's their biggest investment.
Yeah.
It's for everybody that's buying a home. It's like, yes, this is what I want. This is what I dream. And when you feel that you're part of it, that's what it makes the difference.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's what's more special or intimate to someone's life than their home,
They're
right?
just
So yeah, it's a really, really big investment. It's probably, I read somewhere it's generally the biggest purchase that someone makes in their entire life. But
correct.
even more so, you're helping people find their home, the place that they can potentially grow and start a family in. And that was really what even captivated me. Again, I had enough emotional intelligence to realize that, despite the fact that I was a knucklehead. And that was really what captivated me.
Great. And then from there, you went from real estate, you built a big career. Can you tell us a little bit about all that?
Yeah, I had a lot of ups and downs. What I learned really quickly early on in my career was that our industry, especially where I was, I think that my experience in Florida and the couple of years that I've been here practicing real estate is a little different than in New York. New York is a little bit more cutthroat, it's a little bit more competitive because, people, I don't want to stereotype, but people are just a little bit more aggressive. People are also a little bit more secretive with respects to making things happen. It's not as much exchange of information, if you will. So there was a little bit of that lacking in the industry where, in my experience, there wasn't a lot of guidance per se. So you kind of had to learn to figure things out on your own. One thing that I never was, I wasn't like a big marketer. That's just not my personality, which is why I got into leadership to begin with. But I was really, really good always at building rapport with people, and really conveying, what exactly my goal is, and my goal was from that more of an intrinsic point of view, rather than looking at it from a money making opportunity. I wasn't after my commissions, I guess is kind of the best way to put it. Yeah, of course, I wanted to make money. We all want to make money. Let's not, let's not be shy about that. But I've always said that money is a byproduct of your passion, and if you're passionate about something and you're coming from a place of service, then money will always be there. And I learned that really, really early on, and so it took a little while. It was a lot of trial and error, a lot of learn by doing, and keep in mind also, I got into this industry in the fall of 05. And 24 months after that, our entire country was completely different. Our entire fabric of our country economically was drastically different because, of course, in the fall of 27 was kind of the inception of the housing crisis, which I don't even like calling it a housing crisis because it was more of an economic crisis because it had so much more to do than just people being late on their mortgages. But we don't really have to get into that, And so I had to pivot. At the time when the housing crash happened, I was working in the suburbs, selling single family homes up and down Long Island, New York. And when everything kind of, when the sky fell, so to speak, if you wanted to stay in that business and you didn't have 10, 20 years of building up your local market share, it was really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Probably too difficult. And there were a lot of realtors that were no longer realtors at that moment. But I was lucky enough to be in one of the largest economic cities in the country. So I was able to go from the suburbs right into the city. And then I was able to kind of diversify my business a little bit, continue to do sales, but also understand that people were also renting a lot. And there was some money to be made in rentals. And you at the time, and even now, you can do rentals in more high volume. So the way I looked at it was, I can spend the next year or two while we as a country and as a city are trying to get through this mess to build up a really large book of business by just meeting as many people as I possibly can on the rental side. If I remember right, statistically speaking, 65% of people that were moving in Manhattan at that time were people were renting.
Yes.
And rentals over there is a completely different ballgame. You can make six figures just renting apartments in New York, even especially back then. But for me, it was more about a long-term value proposition where I knew because so many people were selling and renting, if I could grab people, it was my in to rebuilding a business from scratch and to be able to do it in high volume and do it fairly quickly. And that's ultimately what happened. But I'll tell you, Sandra, pretty early on in my career, I realized I knew that I wasn't going to be selling real estate for the rest of my life. I knew that eventually the road that I wanted to take was to eventually get into more of the leadership side.
Great. And now that you're in the leadership side, and I know you have been for many years in the leader side, tell us a little bit what companies you were in, where you are now, and why you end up where you are.
Well, I think initially it started with just, if I don't say so myself, not to pat myself on the back too much, but I think a lot of who we are and the path that we take starts with self-awareness. I was very keen on the type of personality that I have and the way my brain functions and how that would relate to certain aspects of our industry. I always like to use movie making as an analogy. And when you're making a movie, there's actors and actresses, people that really love being in the spotlight and in front of the camera, whose role is a little bit more linear, where it's we learn our lines, we show up, we shoot for a month or two, and then we're done. And then there's the directors who are behind the scenes, who are involved in all aspects of what's going on before, during, and after. My personality and the way my brain is always functioning, I was always a lot more analytical than I was social. Don't get me wrong, I'm very comfortable in social environments, but I don't, traditionally, I'm not one that goes out of my way to be social. I like being home. That's why I got married. That's why I had kids. I like being home, right? But again, I'm very analytical, so I like being involved in different aspects of things, and I like being involved for more of an overhead view. So I just really, really knew that my personality and, again, the way my brain works and the things that I was ultimately interested in, if it was going to be in real estate, it was going to lead me to more of the director version of real estate, where it's somebody that has kind of a hand in a lot of different facets. And I spent many, many years kind of developing that idea and developing my skills through experience, through relationships, and eventually worked my way into that part of our industry.
And what did you started to do at that time? Because I didn't tell the audience all what you have done, but a little bit of where do you started to lead, and how did it work, and why do you think a real estate agent, even the new agents, need to have a coach and all that you can explain better?
Yeah, well, let me answer that part first. I think this is a team sport. And this is something I say a lot to people that I'm when I'm interviewing new agents, especially, and I explain to them that this needs to be executed in a collaborative environment. This is football. It's not tennis. It's not meant to be tennis. You're not meant to do this on your own. I think there's a lot more creativity to this industry that in my opinion, most of us don't give credit to. And in order to get the most out of that creative aspect, you need to be put in an environment that is collaborative, And that's the thing with me. I hate working alone. Always hated it. So I've always tried to surround myself with like-minded people. That's the first and foremost thing. If you're working with someone, your goals have to be oriented. They have to be similar, and we could talk about what those goals are, but in essence, for people that are looking to get into this business, and I say this all the time, people are usually out there and they're interviewing brokerages, and they're just kind of focused on the brokerage as a whole. What's on paper? What are the fees? What does the trading look like? Things like that. All of which are important things, sure, but the people in that brokerage, the people in that office are just as crucial to one's success as the model its own. It has to be a combination of those two things. I was never the big producing haymaker guy. I was always the very slow and steady agent. But I was always also very routine oriented, And so as an agent, woke up at the same time every morning, exercised, went through my morning routine, and I was generally in the office at the same time, And I think what people in the office saw, agents that were coming up behind me, was they, for whatever reason, were very comfortable coming to me and asking for help. And I think what they noticed was, first off and foremost, my willingness to help, despite the fact that I did not have all the answers. I certainly don't have them now either. I was always willing to help people because I think that this industry it's hard enough as it is without all these other things that don't really have to be there also working against you. It doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't, And so that's part of why I love doing this is, I went from helping that young couple that bought their first home to helping others either get into the business from scratch or come from other places where they may not get the support that they need and be able to partner with them and help them scale big businesses.
And that's great because you keep continue helping and growing. So Daniel, you lead, you're a leader, but do you have a coach, someone that guides you constantly while you do that as well?
Yeah, I have a coach. I have accountability partners. So my first accountability partner is my wife. Right. I think that's really important. My wife is the hardest working person I've ever met. I'm not going to go into her history, but the things that she's done in her life is really, really impressive. And it was actually one of the first things that grabbed me about her. I still tell her this, that her story was the thing that ultimately got me to really fall in love with her. And so for me, I'm kind of playing a matching game. I'm always trying to match her. So that's the first thing. I think you have to surround yourself with people that are better than you, that are smarter than you, that are working harder than you. And you have to elevate yourself towards them, and they will continue to elevate themselves, and so on and so forth we go. I've worked with a lot of people in the past. I'm lucky enough to be in a company that I'm automatically entrenched amongst other leaders that are far more accomplished than I am, that have skin in the game with respects to what I'm doing, that I can go to anytime I want. And that's one of the really amazing things about our home at EXP. So yes, I think that's really, really crucial. I think working with someone who can help you stay accountable. In my organization, I pair people up all the time that want to be paired up with each other. My agents meet with one another once a week, and they talk about their goals for that week and what they've accomplished or not accomplished the week prior. And that's incredibly important. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me personally, I'm always bouncing ideas of different people that I consider to be a lot smarter than I am.
I think that's very important to have always someone that will be leading you and you lead others. So
And now I have you, Sandra,
now we're together.
icon agent. Come on, congratulations.
Thank you very much. So, what is the difference between those who fail and those who succeed?
I love that question. How much time do we have?
We have 10 minutes,
All right.
but we can go a little more.
Can we go a little longer? Because I want to answer that question and I
Yeah.
want to tell you a story. All right. There's a combination of things. I think the first and foremost is mindset. And when we say fail, we're talking about this industry, of course. I think
Yes.
first and foremost mindset. I think most people that get into this business, for most of us, this industry isn't the first thing that we do. In my experience, based on the myriads of conversations that I have with people. Most people go to college, graduate, or whatever, and then they get a day job, and then 10 years later, they're like, "Where's my life?" And then they decide, I want to have more control. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to get out of this 9 to 5 grind, which is fair. The problem with that is most people get into this because they want to get out of that 9 to 5 life, but they're not getting out of a 9 to 5 mentality. And Sandra, I cannot tell you how often, for example, I'll offer someone who's newly licensed in the state of Florida an opportunity to have a conversation with me. And sometimes people are already associated with other companies, and so often people will say to me, I'm already employed. And they're using that word specifically, or they're using some sort of version of that word. Oh, I'm already working for a broker. And I'm generally very tempted to correct them, not to show them that I'm smarter or better, but to really make sure they understand what it is that they are signing up for. Okay. And that's the problem a lot of times, is that we go from a 9 to 5 role where we may not necessarily like it, but we are putting food on the table. We're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. And then we go into another role that is seemingly for us this opportunity for freedom, but we're so entrenched in that 9 to 5 mentality that we're essentially end up in a job without any salary. And that's the problem with people. And look, this isn't for everybody, right? Not everyone is equipped enough to be their own boss. It's not for everybody. Self-accountability is really difficult. You have to really be honest with yourself, And someone like me, I can help my agents hold themselves accountable, but I tell my agents all the time, my job isn't to hold you accountable. My job is to help you hold yourself accountable. And that's really, really important, because at the end of the day, when that alarm clock goes off, I'm not beside you getting you up to go and do this. And the fact of the matter is that this business is all about consistently making things happen. And it's not for everyone. And so people need to first understand what they're signing up for, and they need to pick the right place. What that right place is going to be different for everyone. But there are so many people that are picking the wrong brokerages because they think they need something. I can't tell you, Sandra, how often people say to me, I don't want to join EXP because I need an office.
I heard that.
How do you know what you need? Right? You don't know what you need. I can tell you for a fact that you don't need an office, because I've got 80 people that work with me without an office, most of whom are killing it. So I know that for a fact, and people will argue. So look, at the end of the day, people oftentimes will get in their own way. And that's really the first and foremost thing. Like, you have to really understand that you're doing this. You're starting your own business. And the job of a real estate company isn't to do it for you. The job of a real estate company is to help you and support you and guide you. They're not here to do the work for you. And there's a little bit of that misconception with people. And that's the difference. The other difference is people don't look at challenges in the right mindset either. Most people that are doing anything really great in our world that's even remotely entrepreneurial, real estate or otherwise, are solution oriented through inevitable challenges. Right? That's the point. That's the path to growth. And the path to growth is through the path of most resistance, not least resistance, which means that hiccups and challenges and setbacks are going to be inevitable. How we deal with that is going to be the difference between whether we make it on this journey or we don't. And the people that do make it are the ones that look at challenges as things that happens for them, as opposed to people that don't make it, where they're even surprised that they're having to deal with challenges to begin with. And that's the problem.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah.
So tell me, we still have a little time. So what kind of, no, I already asked you about the coaching. What are the things that usually work and don't work in real estate?
Well, I think the first thing is consistency. I think some people get so wrapped up in their own minds and they feel like they need to plan everything out before they actually start doing something, that they spend so much time planning, and then they get to the point where they say to themselves, nothing's happening. And then they get discouraged and they leave.
Yeah.
You know, part of the planning process is something I always preach to my people. Part of the planning process is actually doing it, right? You could have an idea in mind of something that you want to do that may work, a system, whatever, but you don't really know if it's going to work, or you don't really know how to tweak it unless you start actually doing it. You know, this business and anything entrepreneurial, in my opinion, it's all predicated on action. It's all predicated on good daily habits that ultimately become secondary. I hate motivation. I don't believe in motivation, right? And I tell my guys all the time, motivation in this business is secondary. It's irrelevant, you know? And I hate that because oftentimes we will wait until we're motivated to do anything. And if we're not motivated, that's okay. That's a good enough for reason that allows us to be okay with not doing it. Does that make sense? Right? It's not about motivation. And I tell this my people all the time. It's about discipline. It's about creating good habits where you're doing the little things day to day that help you scale a business that you don't even think about. Like, we don't think about waking up in the morning and brushing our teeth. We just do it. We've been doing it every day for our entire lives. It's not something that's front and center. And there's just certain things that we just don't think about because we've developed the discipline behind doing it on a daily basis. And that's what this business is all about. You have to develop that discipline. And if you can do that, then you will develop enough of a momentum that can carry you throughout your entire career.
It's like, recognize that it's so difficult for a lot of people, because I can see people, like you said, they get busy, they think they are doing a lot, and then when you realize they don't have the discipline to have everything planned. And
Yeah.
thank you for that tip. So before we go, what or how did EXP change your life?
Yeah. So it was about a year ago, I found myself, and this is also going to answer your question. I think you asked me what companies I've worked with in the past. I've ran offices for small boutique firms initially in my early career, and then eventually worked my way to companies like Corcoran, which is a subsidiary of Realty, one of the most prestigious companies in New York City. I had my own office of 80 agents in Brooklyn. And then shortly after we moved to Florida, I ran or helped run a couple of offices for Keller. I was not in the best of environments, in my opinion. I felt a little bit stymied creatively. I also felt like I was spending way too much time dealing with politics, drama, things that are not only not productive, but they eat away at you over time. You know, and all I wanted to do was to grow something big, you know, create a really great culture and community, um, and help everyone, help myself through everyone else, but help everyone first and foremost. So over time, I felt a little bit beat up and discouraged, and was looking for, it was that my wife was also pregnant, you know, she got pregnant. And so what I started realizing was, you know, what does my life look like, and how does being the type of dad that I want to be work, or doesn't work? And it didn't work because I sat in an office 50, 60 hours a week, you know. So I didn't want to be that guy that like puts food on the table for his kids, because kids don't understand that. Kids understand showing up and being around. And my dad and my parents, both of my parents, were always really, really around, you know. And so I wanted to kind of be that person or that type of parent, and so I had to make a change. And to me, EXP, once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. That's what happened to me. Um, I didn't sleep for 3 nights straight. It's a true story, tossing and turning. And as much of a risk as it was, because look, I was at Keller Williams. I was very comfortable. I had a salary. I had bonuses. I had health insurance. My wife quit her job to go back to school. Like we needed it. Um, but I couldn't. I just couldn't not do it. And that's really what happened. It wasn't so much about I have to say yes. It was more I couldn't say no. So what EXP represents to me is probably the best. To me, EXP is an idea. It's an idea that has completely spread, and it has now grown to this massive thing that is growing faster than anything else out there. No different than the idea of Airbnb or Facebook or whatever, or Amazon. Anything technology starts off as an idea, and that idea spreads because it's making people's lives better.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that really captured me. And I think based on that, I think to me it's the best thing that's happened to specifically the real estate agent community. I don't want to say in the history of this business, but certainly in the 16, 17 years that I've done this, and look where we're at in our world right now, where everything is going virtual.
Yeah.
And there's so much more value to getting things at your fingertips. But more than anything, Sandra, as somebody who is actively helping agents come into the company and then working with them on the other side, I can be very selective. And that's important to me because we know what the fail rate is. And most companies cannot be selective because in franchises, everyone is farming from a very small pool. And so it's a come one, come all situation, which doesn't help anyone. It creates the politics and the drama that I mentioned, because you're getting people that may not necessarily share the same core values as you, So I don't need to be in someone's backyard to help them. I can work with someone in my area in Southwest Florida, and I can work with someone in Atlanta, Georgia, in Los Angeles, California, and I do. My organization right now spans 4 different states, primarily Florida-based, and growing. So I can focus on the person, and I can focus on whether or not our dynamic would work, whether or not they have the right mindset, whether or not they share the same core values that would fit what we're doing culturally, because that's really, really important for me. And then we can decide if it works, if it's mutually beneficial, as opposed to the way most companies are now, and for a while now have been attracting. It's if you want a job, you got it. Like if you want to be you want to associate your license here, you got it. Because the bread and butter of our business is recruiting numbers. That's it. And it is. There's always going to be the numbers aspect behind it, but I don't have to force things that aren't there because I can get in front of more people and I can be a lot more intentional with who should be partnered with me and who shouldn't. And when I say me, I mean us as a group, what we're doing internally, and us as a culture, as a company, because I think that we as a company are cut above the rest. And I've been in enough companies and inside of enough models to be able to definitively say that.
Great. That's a great explanation and also great experience. You've been in the company how long?
I'm almost at a year.
A year. And how many
Yeah.
people you already have?
We're going to be probably close to, we're going to be at 80 by the end of the month.
And that's short time. And I know your agents are all over the world. So that for me, it's just amazing. Being able to talk to broker and EXP broker in Colombia and be part of their masterminds, be part of Spain and all these other countries where you can actually work and attract also buyers and sellers from different places. So it is just amazing. And
collaboration and the importance of it. And that's exactly what Glenn Sanford has built. It's a never-ending world of people collaborating with one another.
Yeah, and you see a lot of collaboration because I'm going to tell you leaders that I never ever imagined. I didn't even have a thought that I will be able to sit down in the same table, even with our broker, with Glenn, and we were in the National Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, where he was present, and he actually wanted to be part of his agents. He threw a little small dinner for us, and just to feel that,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's that closeness, that collaboration, be part of everybody, and I can talk them, try to reach somebody that I don't know, but it's an EXP agent that I know that that person will give me a tip to be better. I'm going to tell you that person will answer me and tell me what I need. So it's just, I love it. I'm very happy, very proud. I iconed yesterday. So I'm very happy.
Very well deserved.
Partners like you and the other Southwest Florida partners that we have. So thank you very much, Daniel. I know we will be coming back with you in here.
Yeah, let's do this again.
Yes, to give some value to the new agents that they are out there.
Anytime you want me on, just let me know. It's a pleasure doing this, and it's been such a pleasure getting to know you the past couple of months, and I look forward to the evolution of our friendship.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And if you don't want to miss the next one, every Friday at 1 o'clock, I will be here. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.